Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel English Today. As I promised you in the previous class, I'm going to discuss uh, a topic titled The Portrait of a Lady. This is by Khushwant Singh, a noted journalist of India. He was a noted journalist of India. He has also authored many novels, short stories. There was a news journal named Illustrated Weekly of India. Khushwant Singh edited that paper also. Acha. He was a journalist, and at the same time he also engaged in fiction writing and articles. So, the portrait of a lady. What do you mean by a portrait? A portrait is a painting, painting of one's, especially painting refers to the painting of one's face. So the portrait of a lady. Here we do not see any portrait or any painting. Rather, we should say here we find a pen portrait of a lady. The lady is Khushwant Singh's. She was Khushwant Singh's grandmother. Uh, this, this is a very nice account, and Khushwant Singh writes it in a very beautiful way. So let us start. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. Grandmothers are always old, and this needs no explanation. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. The author was young then, and she had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. He wants to say that his grandmother had always been old and wrinkled. There were, later he will tell us that he can never believe that once she was pretty or charming. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even a husband. She was old, and so the writer could hardly imagine that once she was pretty and young. Uh, I also tell you to imagine how your grandfather or grandmother must be looking when she or he was young. It is very difficult to imagine that once they were small children. This is the reality here. But this was hard to believe that once she was pretty and young. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban. A turban is a headgear, Sikhs wear turban, and they also have beards. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban. Turban means headgear, and loose fitting clothes. Loose fitting clothes. It is common to find Sikhs in salwar kameez. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest. What is the best part of his chest? Best part of his chest refers to the almost the whole of his chest. Major part. The best part refers to major part. Almost whole. The best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. Very, very old, 100 years old. He did not look like the sort of person who would have a wife or children. It was hard to believe that he had a wife and children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. Revolting means repulsive, unacceptable. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child. This should also appear repulsive, because it is difficult to imagine that she was once a child. That seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part. Absurd, something strange, undignified, not graceful on her part. An old woman should not play. And we treated it like the fables of the prophets he used to tell us. Prophets. Prophets are religious teachers like Guru Nanak. There were 10 gurus in Sikhism, and Sikhism also accepts Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad as prophets. But here the reference is to the fables of the prophets. Fables are stories with a moral. Panchatantra stories, you must have heard of stories having animal characters in them. Birds and animals speak with human interest and passions in fables. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent because she was old. She was bent back. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. Crisscross marked with crossed lines, crisscrossed. Of wrinkles, wrinkles you know, lines running from everywhere to everywhere. Look here, everywhere. We know everywhere is an adverb, but here it is used as a noun. When you say he is a man of now and here also become nouns. No, we were certain she had always been, as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She was neither growing older nor was there was no change in her. But was that the truth? No. As the author always remains close to her, he cannot imagine that she is growing older, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty. Pretty means physically attractive, having physical charms. It was never believable that she was once pretty. But she was always beautiful. Beautiful has a different meaning. Beautiful is different. We can say a beautiful mind, a beautiful heart, but you cannot say a pretty mind or a pretty heart. She hobbled about the house, hobbled to walk lame, to walk unevenly. She hobbled, she hobbled about the house in spotless white. Sikh women prefer to dress themselves as in white. Spotless white with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop bending posture. She used to maintain her balance by keeping her hand on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of her rosary. She was a deeply religious person and never wasted a single minute without praying. So she counted the beads of her rosary. You must have seen people, even Hindus, they count beads of the rosary, chanting the name of God. Her silver locks curls of hair, her silver locks were scattered untidily in a disordered way over her pale, puckered face. Puckered here refers to again wrinkled face. And her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Inaudible prayer. One could hardly make out what she was telling or saying. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains. The winter, you see, the winter landscape in the mountains. The reference to winter reminds of us of the grandmother's old age. She is old, but she is beautiful. There is a she has airs of dignity, and one can call her. She looks beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. She didn't have a single care in the world. This is because she was deeply religious, and the people who are religious by nature, truly religious by nature, they don't have many desires, and they don't run after fulfillment of their needs. Their needs are actually very few. My grandmother and I were good friends. You see, here first it is written, my grandmother and I were good friends. You should not write, I and my grandmother were good friends. That would be discourteous and indecorous. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. The grandmother and the grandson, always lived together. She used to wake me up in the morning. She used to push him awake in the morning. And as he was a small boy, you know how boys love to sleep and they get up late. But the grandmother never allowed this. She would push him awake in the morning and get him ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song. Sing song here refers to a voice. Her voice, simple. In a prayer is, she sings the prayer, but we cannot call it a song. But it has a rhythm. It's simple. It has a simple rhythm. Sing song. While she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. The old lady wanted her grandson, means the author, to learn to get the prayer by heart. I listened, but the narrator listened or the author listened because he loved her voice and didn't bother to remember what she was saying. Then she would fetch my wooden slate. There was a time when children used wooden slates, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk. A tiny earthen ink pot. In the old, in during those days, children carried ink pots to their schools, and they had a different kind of pen also. The slate had to be plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen. Tie them all in a bundle and hand it to me. This was the grandmother's duty in the morning, and she loved to do this. After a breakfast of a thick stale chapati left over from previous night. Stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it. We went to school. So the writer's breakfast included a stale chapati with butter spread on it and a bit of sugar and little bit of sugar. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. This tells us that the grandmother was a very compassionate person, and she loved to feed the poor dogs, the village dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. You know, let me tell you, in those days, schools were mostly attached to temples. The learning was based on uh, religious stories and religion and script holy books were also part of the school curriculum. while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda, singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. Chorus means they together sang the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. Scriptures means holy books. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They knew that the writer's grandmother was going to throw throw pieces of stale chapatis to them. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other. Why did they growl and fight? Two, they were fighting over the chapatis she threw to them. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point in our relationship. Turning point, a great change in their relationship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. An English school, an English medium school in a motor bus. He was fortunate to read in an English, to study in an English medium school. Don't say he read in an English medium school, that would be wrong. We should say he studied in an English medium school. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. So now she was deprived of of the opportunity to feed the dogs, to feed dogs. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. Now he went to an English school and she must be busy with his studies. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. You see, she was suspicious that the teacher might be teaching something unnecessary or harmful. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. She didn't believe that the world was round. Previously, people believed that the world was flat. This made her unhappy. She didn't believe all these things. The world was flat, round, and it was moving. This made her unhappy. She could not help me with my lessons. Even now, if you go to remote villages of India, there are old men and women. They don't believe that the earth moves around the sun. I have talked to many elderly people in the village. They say that man never reached the moon. This was a blatant lie. She did not believe in the things they taught at the school, at the English school, and was distressed. Distressed means pained that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. One day, you see, she insisted on character building. But in the English school, the writer received lessons on Western science and even music. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. She was very disturbed. You see, previously the elderly people did not like singing, dancing, and acting also in films, movies, in films, jatras, and they thought that singing was the proper job of harlots. Harlots prostitutes or women of loose character, and beggars. Beggars could see, gentlemen could not see, and not meant for gentlefolk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. She didn't openly criticize, but her silence meant disapproval. Why did she like music? To her, music had lewd associations. Lewd means sexual. It was the monopoly of harlots. Monopoly, if something is done by particular group, then they have monopoly of doing that. If India exports only tea to America and India has the exclusive right to do that, then India has monopolized the export of tea to America. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval, disagreement. She didn't like it. She rarely talked to me after that. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped, broken. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. Resignation, uncomplaining acceptance. She rarely left her spinning wheel. Spinning wheel, you must have seen Gandhi at the spinning wheel. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayers. Just mark how deeply religious she was. She never wasted a single minute without praying. Only in the afternoon she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows. This is in the city house of the writer's father. While she sat in the veranda breaking the bread into little bits, crumbs, hundreds of little birds collected around her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirrupings. Bedlam is a state of chaos, confusion, veritable of the highest degree, to the greatest possible extent. A veritable bedlam of chirrupings. Some came and perched on her legs. Perched means sat on her legs. Others on her shoulders. Some even sat on her head. She smiled, but never shooed them away, never scared them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. When I decided to go abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset that her grandson is going abroad. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, one could never tell. Acha, let me tell you, when the grandmother knew her grandson was going abroad, she must have been unhappy. Please recall the reaction of Gandhi's mother before Gandhi was sent to England for studying law there. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, one could not tell. Could not tell what? She might she might die any moment, might pass away any moment. But my grandmother could. She knew when she was going to die. Previously, people were deeply religious and quite intuitively they could predict their death. Even now, this happens. Rajesh Khanna, before Rajesh Khanna died, uh, just before his death, he said, "Pack up, it is time to go." Sometimes this comes. This realization comes. This knowledge comes. But my mother could. She could predict her death. She was not even sentimental. Sentimental, emotional. She came to leave me at the railway station but did not talk or show any emotion. This perhaps uh, indicated her silent disapproval. Her lips moved in prayer, her mind was lost in prayer, her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. Again and again, we come to know that she is praying, constantly praying, and this tells us how deeply religious and God fearing she was. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. Silently, she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. When she was a child, the grandmother might have kissed him so many times. But here he says the moist means slightly wet, imprint of as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. But that was not so. When he came back, his grandmother was still living. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station, at the railway station. She did not look a day older. There was no change in her physical appearance. She still had no time for words. And while she clasped me in her arms, while she held me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. You see, you may get a question. To justify that, the writer's grandmother was a deeply religious person. Then you should discuss how many times there have been references to her telling the beads of her rosary or saying her prayer inaudibly. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer, and with frivolous rebukes. Frivolous. The actual pronunciation is frivolous. Frivolous means silly or mild, and with frivolous rebukes. Rebuke means scold. He scolded me, he rebuked me, almost convey the same sense. In the evening, a change came over her. But when evening came, a change came over her for the first time. She did not pray. Perhaps it was the only time she did not pray. She collected the women of the neighborhood, people living around them, and got an old drum and started to sing. This behavior was rather strange. For several hours she thumped the sagging means loose, the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum. Dilapidated means shabby, worn out, or we should say rickety. Skins of the dilapidated drum, worn out, shabby drum, and sang of the homecoming of warriors. Warriors. When in the old days, when warriors returned home, they were greeted with a lot of pomp and ceremony. And there were songs, and she sang one of those songs. We had to persuade her to stop, to avoid overstraining. She was old, she was weak, so she should not do that. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. The next morning, she was taken ill. She was down with fever. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But the doctor was wrong. The grandmother's last moment had arrived, and she knew it. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. Her end was drawing near, was at hand. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of life, she had omitted to pray. She was beating the drum. So, as she had omitted to pray, now she must not waste any time. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. We protested, but she ignored our protests because she was sure she was going to leave the earth, leave the world. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling the heartbeats. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving, and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that she was no more, she was dead. Just remember how she could predict that she was going to die. We lifted her off the bed, and as is customary, we laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud, a sheet of a red sheet. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. Like the Hindus, the Sikhs also burn their dead. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to be cremated. A crude stretcher must be made of bamboo or other metal like wooden sticks, mostly bamboo. The sun was getting the sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. The sun was setting and she had lost her life. She had left the world. Just relate these two things. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in the courtyard. All over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff. After a person dies, the body becomes stiff. Okay, there she lay, wrapped in the red shroud. Thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. There was no chirruping. The sparrows, the little birds, were struck with great pain, great sorrow. There was no chirruping. We felt sorry for the birds, and my mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs, the way my grandmother used to, and threw it to them. The sparrows